Hello and welcome to my first video on YouTube. Today we are gonna repair an iPhone 11 Pro. It's got a problem with boot looping. So the problem is it shows the Apple logo for a few seconds and then it goes off. This is sometimes a usual problem with these kind of phones because the sensors on top, they get wet through the speaker mesh. That's the weak spot on this kind of devices because it's not actually waterproof. Some water goes through or some humidity and the sensor gets oxidized, and it usually tends to get these iPhones to boot loop or not to turn at all. I've seen it before. So the first step for this kind of repair is to take a cable and to check the measurements if it's actually charging at all. So I'm seeing on my multimeter, I'm seeing 5 volts and 2 amps coming and going. It means every time it goes on, it starts to charge. Then when the Apple logo goes off, it stops. The first thing I'm gonna look is the front flex cable, the cable that connects the speaker, the proximity sensor and the light sensor to the board. So let's start. With these kind of phones, the first thing I like to do is to take out the pendulum screws. They are located on the bottom of the device. After that, I get my phone a bit warm, so I use a heat gun. It's not on. Now it's on. So I warm it up because it's lighter to take it off, a suction ring. So then I go with a tiny precision tool inside of display. I add a bit of isopropyl alcohol. It helps to get the glue weak. So the first thing when I make a gap, I use a plastic plectrum. They are really useful for all kinds of repairs, for the things that have displays and such, because they don't destroy them and they don't cut the cables that easy as the metal tools do. So I just use mainly metal tools to pry open devices, but not actually to open them to the end. So we try to plectrum all around the phone. I don't go to the very top because there are metal brackets on the top, and if you go inside you could break the display itself. So we are inside, we remove suction. So pick it up just at like 2 centimeters, not to cut the display cables. Wiggle it a bit, so a bit of wiggling, and then open. We open it to the right side. So inside we see everything. So the battery, the main board, the cameras. Very important not to touch the thing is at the top because you can damage the Face ID. So the first thing on every phone that should be done is to disconnect the battery. Disconnecting battery is really easy. You need a 3-point screwdriver. So there is a one connector there, and there is a one connector on the bottom side where the charging port is. So also a very important thing is to sort out your screws while repairing stuff, because on many devices and iPhones explicitly is that Apple tends to make different sizes of screws, so you can damage your phone beyond repair by screwing in the screw in the wrong hole. Yeah, not funny when it happens. So disconnecting the battery on the bottom, on the top, so the board doesn't have any power. Now we continue to take off the shield where the display connectors are, and also many more. So removing the, how much, 6 screws. Also, while removing connectors and while prying off some flex cables, you always need to use a plastic tool. In this case, I'm using a plastic spudger. It's really cheap and useful tool. So in this case, display is connected with 2 cables. One is for picture, one is for touchscreen, and the third flex cable is for sensors and the speaker on top. So first thing I'm gonna test is test the phone without this flex cable. And how to do that properly: you take the flex cable off, you cover the connector with something, you plug in the battery back, very carefully. You should hear a snap. So close it, take a charging cable, plug it in, let it boot up. So let's see if it restarts again. So I'm seeing 5 volts, 2.7 amps. I'm using a fast charger, and that is a normal charging current for this kind of phone. So it's staying on. It booted up. But the screen is broken. You see? Yeah. It actually makes sense because the screen is not glued in properly. It wasn't open before, but it's broken. Yeah, let's see if touch is working. Yeah, we have a touch. So the problem is in the front flex cable. It's usually a repairable situation, and actually we can save Face ID also if the damage is not too big. So the process now is to take off the display, to remove the flex cable, and go to our soldering station. Yeah, let's do it. So disconnect. Flex cable. Yeah. So this is the display. We have the flex cable. This is the speaker and the microphone, the light ambient sensor and proximity switch. So when one of these 2 sensors goes bad, you lose the Face ID option also. Yeah, let's see it under the scope. So the first thing we're gonna look is how the sensor is looking under the scope. So we're gonna zoom in a bit. So let's take a look. You see this white stuff? Actually, the scope is a bit out of focus. So see the white stuff all around? This looks terrible. Yeah. Yeah, the both sensors got beat up. So what I like to do is soak it a bit with isopropyl alcohol, because it's the flexor, it's glued together actually. So I unwind it a bit like that. So let's make a quick test. So I'm gonna take the phone. I'm gonna put the flex cable in, and then I'm gonna connect the display. Then I'm gonna connect the battery. So let's see if it boots up. Apple logo is always a good thing to see. Boot up. Yes. So it booted up. You see? It was just the one sensor. So I'm gonna end up the video for now.